I think one of the most challenging things when you're first learning jazz is to take a melody, play it the way it is in the real book or whatever, and then start embellishing it. And part of it is because we're not usually immersed enough in the language as sort of this living process. And from what I can tell, back in the 30s, 40s, 50s, even early 60s, when this music was more in the air in terms of a lot of these tunes, these standards were popular songs, Autumn Leaves, things like that. You got a sense of this because vocalists did this all the time. You know, one singer might go, you know, the falling leaves, very straight, and the next one's a little jazzier, the falling leaves. You know how sort of accents that, makes it a dotted quarter instead of a quarter note. Someone else will delay a note. 1, 2, the falling leaves, you know. Sinatra would sing it differently than Ella Fitzgerald, and they'd sing it differently than someone who was even more of a straight pop singer. People play it on the piano differently, and you heard this all the time on the radio, recordings, and live. And so when you're starting with jazz, think of yourself as a vocalist doing that, and even learn that the lyrics can really help. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to play Autumn Leaves, and I'm just going to play the right hand alone. And this is how I'd suggest you practice sometimes. You just play it very straight. You're going to play it like that a lot until it gets very easy. And you can even if you don't know the lyrics, you can kind of sing along in your head or just on ba da da da, ba da da da. A lot of jazz pianists play along when they sing because you get a nice connection with your inner ear that way, just very lightly. And then what you do is you kind of think of this drummer, and you're going to sort of lock in with some of those accents. 1, 2, 3, down, down. See, so even though I'm not playing anything in my left hand, I'm thinking more like a saxophonist or a singer or a flute player. I'm kind of having a lot of fun with the rhythms. I'm enjoying this process even though I'm not playing my left hand. I'm not thinking like something's missing. And also, you could see some of it's more legato, some of it's more rhythmic, bouncy, like somebody dancing. And some of it's louder and softer. So there's so much you can do just in those with those parameters. And the other thing is I started repeating some notes, right? Maybe to give some rhythm that's not happening because I don't have my left hand, but that's going to propel you to start messing around with the melody in a really good way by not having a left hand. Let me do it again, and now I can add some notes that are just one note higher or lower than the melody, like. And they can either be chromatic, lower, or part of the scale, diatonic lower. Just use your ear. And, you know, maybe there's a little, some of that. Similar to the flowing water lessons, right? All right, let's give this a try. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. kind of outlined an E minor chord there. So if you can do that with just your right hand and have fun, and it might take a few weeks, a few months, or whatever to get to that point, that's a whole nother step. And that's really the way jazz musicians play melodies. You know, you're not really playing it exactly the way it's written. If it was a standard tune, you know, pop standard that's been adapted. If you're playing a Charlie Parker tune like Confirmation, you know, you're generally playing it exactly as written, but even somebody like Gil Evans, the arranger, who was a friend of Parker's, changed Parker's melodies when he arranged them for the Claude Thornhill Orchestra. So you can still do that with bebop tunes, although it's less common. So now, there's no pressure to play these incredibly complex left hands. You can play either just the root and the seventh with these shell voicings, sevenths and thirds, or just the root position seventh chords, or rootless voicings, whatever you want, or even just the roots. Let me do this and I'll just play the root. Sounds pretty good, right? So you see, it's not really necessarily about working something incredibly hard out at first. You do what you can do, and if you want to learn these rootless voicings, learn them. But on the other hand, it's about having this rhythmic interplay, and this rhythmic freedom is much more important than the incredibly complex harmonies that I know so many people start with. But do this at the same time, or even before that. Get the rhythm going, and this melodic variation, and then, yes, okay, well, I want to be able to play the chords with two hands. And very complex chord voicings. That can come at the same time or later, but don't start with that at the expense of the rhythm. Even if you went... just roots, that is a really great place. You're just sort of playing the congas. Bum, bum, ba-dum, ba-doo-dum. Okay, I'm going to do the same thing with all of me. I'm going to just embellish the melody a little bit with some neighboring tones and lots of different rhythmic variations, like a singer would, but with some extra notes. 1, 2, 3. Basie ending there. Count Basie, you just play a C on top and it goes D, D sharp, E. Classic. I'll do the same thing on Blue Bossa. 1, 2, 3. So you see, you can really get into playing variations on the melody and leading that into your solo. So there you go. Autumn Leaves, All of Me, and Blue Bossa. Have fun with that. You can see that until the end, when I really just played a lot of these sort of almost fake stride, but in a bossa nova style, where you play roots and then the rest of the chord. The left hand was pretty simple throughout, so it wasn't really that fancy, but the rhythmic interplay was very natural, and that's where you want to get. And start out with just the melody like I showed you at the beginning. Have fun.